Welcome to the MMA Junkie Rankings Report for January 29th, 2020. We've got the MMA Junkie Rankings chair, gorgeous George Garcia, in the house for this one. Let's get right to it, George. This past weekend, UFC on ESPN Plus 24 was in Raleigh, North Carolina, and Curtis Blaydes picked up a big win in his career over Junior Dos Santos. A little bit of a shuffle in the heavyweight division, but this one ended up being pretty simple for you.
It was, because the heavyweights, oh man, like they have a little bit of rhyme and reason to them. You got Miocic and Cormier at the top, and Ngannou, who's been pretty much destructive of everyone, but Stipe and you know that terrible fight against Lewis. But he's not at number 3, so we bring up Blaydes from 6 to number 4. Dos Santos slips right behind him. Lewis is right behind Dos Santos, and you see what I'm saying? 3's beating 4, 4's beating 5, so they made it really, really easy for me. Blaydes look good, by the way.
Yeah, no question about it. He's wanting a big fight next. A little bit of a logjam up there at top of the heavyweight, but certainly he'll get a big fight of some kind next. Now, the co-main event, pretty interesting here at welterweight. Michael Chiesa picked up a big win over RDA, the former champ there as well. Now, Michael Chiesa had been at 155 for the longest time. He's at 170 now, and he's debuting in the list, basically, and there was some real discussion over where to put him at. Ultimately, I think we decided at number 13, but the discussion was whether or not he deserved to move past Lorenz Larkin, and I know we had a little bit of back and forth on that. Ultimately, we said, yes, he does. He goes to 13. Give me your take on Michael Chiesa in his new spot.
Yeah, credit to Uncle Matt Erickson. You know, he kind of was throwing some stuff my way. He's covered Bellator a lot. And, you know, we talked about the Larkin wins. And Larkin's big wins in the UFC over Ponzinibbio Masvidal, they're a little bit further behind in his career. And you got to give Chiesa credit to what he's been doing since moving up to welterweight. He's now 3-0. All the names have been solid tests. But, man, he did some work against RDA, who was at number 9. So RDA is going to fall down a little bit. Chiesa's going to leap just on top of him. I couldn't put Chiesa past Luque and Neal and some of these other studs that have been, you know, doing it for a long time. But we're going to bring him in. We're going to bring him in at 13. We're going to bring RDA from 9 to 14. Lorenz Larkin will drop to 15. Lawler drops to honorable mentions. And Michael Page is going to have to exit for now.
Yeah, no question. It's a stacked division,
and
man.
RDA is a tough out, but he has lost 4 or 5. So what can you do? You know what I mean? Ultimately, you have to win. And I like the placing of him right in front of Lawler. Again, respecting the head-to-head.
I was going to say, it's crazy. Rafael Dos Anjos 1-4 in his last
stud,
5, man. And he's
on cold run.
That's it. All right, flyweight. Flyweight is kind of a tough one, right? It's been kind of you know, at the top, there's some big names, and obviously we've got a title fight coming up. But overall, the division is just not real active. You know what I mean? Right. I think the UFC has been kind of in limbo. They're saying they're committed to it, but they're not showing it necessarily all the time by booking these guys a ton. But, you know, so it's a little bit tough to figure out. But I'm getting to it because you wanted to give a reward to Alex Perez, who turned in a good performance as well.
Right. He's going to go from 15 to 9. He's 5-1 in the UFC. And guess what? Look, the UFC, they didn't know what they were going to do with the division. The GOAT went to one championship, and then Triple C, of course, you know, he ushered that move because he got that win over Demetrius Johnson, but then he decided to stay at bantamweight. So we have a quality main event in Figueiredo and Benavidez. I think the division's back. I think a lot of those guys just had to cash checks, so they were fighting at 35. They were fighting overseas. They didn't know what they were doing. Some just haven't been fighting at all. So that's why there's that big move right here for Perez. But I think in 2020, a lot of these fighters will get fights, and the division will kind of start to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I love the flyweight division. I think it's always fun.
It's awesome.
Those guys can fight. All right, wrapping up the UFC, a couple new honorable mentions. You had Arnold Allen, who's been on a fantastic tear coming in at featherweight, and Angela Hill, who's really kind of found her stride as well. She moves into the honorable mentions at strawweight.
Yeah, so Hill actually has one credible win, and I was there to witness it when she won her world title over at Invicta. But since then, she's kind of been more of a 500 fighter. She has won 2 in a row. A lot of her fights are last minute. She goes out there, she competes. Good on her. So welcome back to the rankings, Angela Hill. She's been there before. Arnold Allen, kind of more of a debut for him. But look, he's won 7 straight. And even though he hasn't gotten one of those ranked names, a la what Chiesa did, the guy's been putting in work, and those are respectable names that he's fought. Nick Lentz, Gilbert Melendez. At some point, you got to reward the guy. So Arnold Allen, he jumps into the featherweight rankings, and that's a tough one to penetrate because that is a stacked division.
That is a stacked division as well, man. Love the featherweight division as well. Okay, meanwhile, the other side of the country, the same night, Bellator 238 was in Inglewood, California. A lot of fun fights in there. There were a lot of big names. It was a really good card. I was there for that. Very entertaining night. But in terms of the real rankings impact, it was all focused around one fight, and that was the title fight. Chris Cyborg comes in, picks up her 4th major championship championship. Unbelievable there in beating Julia Budd. And that has an impact both at featherweight and, of course, in the pound-for-pound rankings as well, because Chris Cyborg has featured there forever. But I guess kind of an interesting spot in both cases because she's so far up there at the top. There's just not a lot of room for movement.
Exactly. That loss to Amanda Nunes still hangs over her head, so we can't move her up, neither in pound for pound or in featherweight. But make no mistake, she's 22-2-1 as a featherweight, because that's primarily where she's fought. And Amanda Nunes is really only 1-0 recently, and before 2011, she was 6-1. So you could make the argument that Chris is still the greatest featherweight of all time. But right now in the rankings, we have to respect what happened about a year ago, and that was a destruction at the hands of Nunes. So for now, hey, look, credit to Chris. Those major belts, she's a legend. She's awesome. Julia Budd competed, so I'm not dropping her neither in featherweight or pound for pound. The guys agreed. So, yeah, I mean, as much as I want to tell you there's this big shakeup, there isn't. But make no mistake, what Chris did was an amazing accomplishment to win that fourth major belt, and we're going to keep an eye on her every single time she fights, and Nunes doesn't at featherweight.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, listen, it was kind of a slow start to the year, right, where we had a couple weeks off with no fights, but that is quickly changing as we move forward in 2020, and we'll update you each week on the changes to the list here in the Rankings Report.